Don't say that. You're jinxing us. You're jinxing us. It never works out. Every time we say that, something blows up.
Lori, if you hadn't showed, we might have an empty house. Thank God. If you hadn't shown up, we might have an empty house tonight. So thank goodness you're here. Oh, no, there they are.
There it is.
No, just commenting that no one was here. Okay.
Well, so you're liking it so far? That's cool. I'm glad to hear that.
She's doing a great job. I'm checking.
You want to keep an eye on it? So Colin is going to dress up as Grimace for Halloween, and I've never been prouder.
It was a great year.
It was a great year.
I mean, it was a great year.
There's a Mets reference in there. They had, for some stupid thing over the summer, Grimace, like the character, throughout the first pitch, and from that point on, the Mets went on this like crazy winning streak. So it became like the unofficial mascot, and my 12-year-old son discovered he likes baseball this year, and I'm like a diehard Mets fan, and so couldn't be prouder. And then, yeah, he's gonna be Grimace for Halloween, so it's like, yeah, it's like he gets it. What's that?
Oh,
Yeah, and it was like, well, since 2015, but it's like, but it was just like an amazing season. Like they started off kind of terrible, and then they just like were amazing for like the last 2 months. Yeah.
Ready?
Are we at 8:30?
It's time.
All right, fair enough.
Ready? Good evening. This is the Ridgewood Village Council Public Workshop. The date is October 23rd, 2024. The time is 7:30. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled the same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilmember Perrin,
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds, absent. Councilmember Whites,
Here.
Councilmember Winograd,
Here.
Mayor Vagianos.
Here. Will you all please join us in a salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice And let's go right to public comment.
Excuse me.
It's not on. There's a green
mic.
light, there's a button at the base, and the green light will go on. You're good.
Yay. And now you can hire me, I can do tech.
And remember, you don't have to give your address, just that you're a resident of Ridgewood.
Excuse me?
You don't have to give your address.
Oh, we
just
don't do
you're-
that anymore?
No, we don't do
Okay.
that anymore, just that you're a resident of Ridgewood.
Okay, so I'm Lori Weber, and I am a 40-plus year resident of Ridgewood. And I'm going to read. Last week, our mayor purported an alarming decline in the state of our schools. He quoted a student-to-teacher ratio, claiming it to be significantly higher and placing the blame on one person, Board of Education member and Village Council candidate Hyunju Kwak. What ensued since has been a series of targeted social media attacks on Ms. Kwak. Mr. Vagianos cherry-picked that one statistic from the homepage of the school district website, but the district does not post the historical data necessary to reach any conclusion. The New Jersey Department of Education does. Had Mr. Vagianos checked there, he would have found statistics that were all calculated by the same method, going back several years, and a much lower ratio for the present time. Given his prior work experience, Mr. Vagianos is no stranger to the resources of the Department of Education and the proper vetting of information. It took me a minute, literally a minute, to Google the information that he avoided. Keep in mind that when Mr. Vagianos denigrates our schools, he is not just talking about one board member. He is indicting the superintendent, who actually runs our schools along with his administrative team, and 5 board members. And frankly, our new superintendent is the best I've seen in a long time. He's far more engaged with the community and innovative than his predecessors. The good health of our schools is testament to that, and when a resident asks him for the source of information he relies on, he provides it. Mr. Vagianos refused to identify the source of the data he used for his comparison when I asked him. Mr. Vagianos, our mayor, chose to throw our schools under the bus to fabricate a talking point to disparage a political opponent. His reckless manipulation of information has caused strife in our community, alarmed the parents of our school children, stirred divisiveness, and inspired some of his supporters to relentlessly troll Ms. Kwak online with some of the worst vitriol I've seen in a Ridgewood election. This from someone who regularly lectures the community about civility. He has no business holding others to a standard that he constantly violates. Mr. Vagianos needs to stop talking about civility and start being civil. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Good evening, Ann Loving, Ridgewood, New Jersey. I have a question about the tables over there where the transparency binders are. I spoke to Heather, pardon me?
Can you lift that up? Just, I can't hear everybody that well. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question about the table where the transparency binders are. I spoke to Heather about this the other day, and she said she does not believe that there is a policy governing whether any sort of literature can be placed there, an actual policy. Tonight, for example, I see a flyer there, something to do with Ridgewood. I know that sometimes when a new business comes to the mic to talk about their restaurant or whatever, they may leave menus over there. Okay, I would like to know if there is such policy, because I placed some actual news articles there regarding a pretty hot topic to tap into, who's here tonight, and our mayor, and the village manager immediately removed them. So I want to know, is there a policy, or are things not allowed to go there? And if there's not a policy, I would like to know why my flyers were removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone else? No, I see someone on hybrid access. by the letters DPL. You're up. You're on mute. Much better.
Hi, this is Denise, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now, Denise.
Yep, great, okay. I have two topics I want to talk about today. One is
Please identify yourself for the record.
I did. I'll do
We
it
didn't
again.
hear you,
Denise.
we just heard you say Denise.
Yeah, Ridgewood, New Jersey, yep.
Your last name, Denise?
Pierce,
Thank you.
no problem. I'd love to get you off a speakerphone. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that. Okay. Right, two topics I'd like to talk about. One is the tracking from the Guild, and the other one is leaf collection. I know that in today's day and age, Google's tracking, Google's listening, Google pushes stuff to you. I think we all get that this is just the way of how people are living these days. So tracking footage doesn't seem unrealistic. I guess where I am concerned is that I'm sure people from the village council are sitting on the Guild meetings. We have a lot of committees where we're trying to work together, improve the central business district. And I fail to see how this hasn't come up all year. And I think ethically, if the conversation came up that there would be tracking, that somebody should have brought it to the village and we should have been reviewing it in front of the residents. And so I'd like to understand, did that just get missed and nobody thought that ethically it would be a good idea to tell residents? And I think that's where my concern is. So I'd love to understand more about that and why we weren't brought into the conversation. My second thing is about leaf collection. So we all spend a lot of time in Ridgewood. We care about our community. We care about our lawns, landscaping. That's the charm of the town. We all spend a lot of time pushing the leaves out to the curbs. And then what I'm already starting to see is we're not vacuuming the leaves, but we're pushing the leaves into big piles. And it's just leaving the streets a mess. I mean, it looks ugly. We spend years, keeping everything tidy, and now the streets look a mess. And then when it rains, all those leaves get stuck in the drainage, and then we get flooding. So I don't know what happened to all the money we spent on the vacuum trucks, and why we're pushing all these leaves up and down all the streets. But it really doesn't look good, and we spend a lot of time just trying to keep the charm of the community. So I would love to hear from the village manager about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to take a moment and address Lori's comments. I'm going to start with what we agree on, which is that the superintendent of schools in Ridgewood is terrific. We are fortunate to have him. He is a cut above, and I am so pleased that he is here. He is a wonderful working partner. Here's where we disagree. I did not denigrate, I did not indict, I did not fabricate, I did not recklessly manipulate, I did not stir divisiveness. I simply quoted on its face, of which I had a screenshot, the Board of Education website that said the student-teacher ratio was 16:1. That's all I did. And when you asked me, I didn't know at the time, I didn't remember, but you and I had a lengthy text message conversation, and I sent you the screenshot. So to say that I didn't identify it is just not accurate. I relied upon, reasonably so. Lori, I don't make faces when you say things. It's rude. Excuse me. Public comment is closed, and I'm asking you. You can do whatever you want, but I don't make faces when you speak. I sit and I listen. Yeah. So the point is, I simply relied upon the Board of Education's website, which is self-explanatory on its face, and that's it. And I have no problem with that. And again, anybody who wants the screenshot, I have it. Interestingly, shortly after that, the website was changed from 16:1 to 11:1. So that's a big discrepancy. Don't know exactly what happened, and I'm not going to speculate. But it changed almost immediately afterwards. That's it. Anybody else have any comments on anything anyone said?
Mayor, with regard to Ms. Loving's inquiry about the back table, I can't speak to whether or not there's a policy. I honestly don't know. I can tell you that during the last meeting, staff alerted me to something other than a government document being placed on that table near the agenda. When I got up to greet the police officers after the presentation portion, I noticed it myself. I took them and I gave them to the village clerk. We can certainly formalize a policy that the council can either consider, or depending on Matt's advice, could be issued directly from me. But in my opinion, this is a public meeting. This is a government building. That table back there should be for government documents, because if someone comes in here and confuses it with something that was placed there by the public, I think that could cause a very difficult problem for the village. Finally, to Denise, again, we've had this discussion about the Placer AI technology. I have spoken to the League of Municipalities on 2 separate occasions since our last council meeting on this. One of the difficulties with this type of technology is that local municipalities really are handcuffed from being able to regulate this, because even if the municipal council were to, or the village council was prepared to introduce an ordinance to regulate it, we would have no way to enforce it. The police department does not have those capabilities. The IT department does not have those capabilities. So I would direct Denise and any other concerned residents to talk to the Guild. I've had some conversations with Tony myself. I know he's fielded some questions and some inquiries from some residents regarding this technology. But the other thing that I want to point out is the reason we know that it was used was because the Guild came here and reported it out to the council. We have no idea what other businesses, what other organizations, what other residents could be using a similar technology in Ridgewood. We have no idea. The only reason we know is because they came and thought it was important to share that data, not only with the council, but with the public. So I think that's important to point out. And finally, to Denise, with regard to the leaf collection, we are just in our 2nd week of leaf collection. We do both vacuum up the leaves. That takes place on main roads especially. That's where we try to focus the use of the vacuums. And then we also, the Streets Division also pushes leaves into a certain location so that they can be picked up as well. That's a strategy that Mike Junta and his team down at Streets have used in the past. I'll certainly discuss it with him tomorrow, but that is the strategy that we've been using here in the village.
Thank you. Anybody else? All good. Let's move on. Manager's report.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. First, tonight I want to start by thanking Access Ridgewood and the Ridgewood Public Library for their amazing work this past weekend during Access Week. It was a very special time here in the village and something that the Ridgewood community should be very proud of. I also want to give a big thank you to the Shade Tree Commission on their successful Adopt a Sapling program, which was held this past Saturday. They had a great group of volunteers who met at Somerville School and helped to plant over 90 saplings on a beautiful day. This week, our engineering department submitted our recertification to the Community Rating System program. This is a FEMA-administered program which tracks flood mitigation efforts in municipalities, and as we earn credit for each of those efforts, it in turn reduces residential flood insurance premiums for our residents. I want to thank Chris and Jovan and the staff up in engineering for being proactive on this work effort. Also this past week, engineering oversaw the paving on Albin Court and Lynn Street, and the fuel tank replacement project is progressing at the Public Works facility on Chestnut Street. The tanks were installed yesterday, and we're now working on all the connections that need to be done. We're hopeful that this project will be wrapped up and concluded by mid to late November. Chris Rudishauser, Nancy Bigos, Matt Andrula, and myself, we walked Hawes Field in preparation for the field renovations there last week. We also have some work to do with regard to tree removal, tree replacement, and the maintenance on some storm drains that run along the field as well. I also previously walked the field with Ms. No, one of the residents who came to express some interest in that project here at a previous village council meeting. She was very helpful in sharing some of the concerns of the neighbors, which was in turn shared with staff. Today we had a meeting with the head of the county engineering department regarding the West Glen sidewalk project. Nancy Dargis confirmed once again for us that the county will not permit the building of retaining walls in the right-of-way. I have that in writing. I'm not going to read you the whole email, but it should be stated that, as per state statute, the county maintains West Glen Avenue from face of curb to face of curb, pavement edge to pavement edge, and does not own, install, nor maintain sidewalks within the public right-of-way. Any sidewalk constructed within the public right-of-way is to be ADA compliant, and any retaining wall constructed to build the sidewalks are required to be out of the public right-of-way. The county does not own, install, nor maintain retaining walls constructed for the installation of sidewalks. And it goes on to talk about all parking regulations. But then it says at the end, any easements acquired should be to the village and not to the county. In turn, after that meeting today, I had a conversation with Matt Rogers. We are going to meet with the impacted residents of West Glen Avenue on November 12th at a community meeting downstairs in the community center. We are in the process of drafting sample easements so that the residents can be shared those documents. In addition, Matt has reached out to County Council's office just to make sure that the village, even though the easement will be with the village, we want to make sure that the county is comfortable with the language that's in there in the interest of full transparency. And in the meantime, we are still talking to the DEP about the sidewalks on the adjacent side of the street. So we're working through these issues. We look forward to meeting with those 9 or 10 residents to talk about how we're going to move forward with this project. And finally, on the communication front, this mailer will be going out to every Ridgewood household soon. This is the communication mailer that we talked about. There'll be a QR code on there. It says, stay informed about all things Ridgewood. Residents will be able to scan, and they'll be able to be directed to a page on the village website, which will allow them to sign up for weekly e-news messages, the My Ridgewood app, Reverse 911 emergency notifications, Recycle Coach, Water Smart, and the weekly e-newsletter from the library. So this will allow residents to sign up for all those notifications, and we can continue to increase communications here in the village. Just a few announcements. Leaf season, again, began on October 14th. Schedules have been mailed out to every home, and they're also posted on the village website. Please remember that the dates that are placed for your area are the dates that the leaves should be placed curbside, and soon after that, our streets division will be out there to collect the leaves. We'll have a trick-or-treating event this year at Village Hall on Thursday, October 31st from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Each village department will be open so that the parents can bring their children here to trick-or-treat, and then they can head over to the library, Ridgewood Water, the stable, and the fire department, who will also be participating in the event. The Ridgewood Elder Dinner will take place on Sunday, November 10th from 3 to 5 p.m. Doors open at 2:30 at the Old Paramus Reformed Church. Registration is required through Community Pass. Space is limited to 90 guests. Bus transportation is available. Please contact the village manager's office if you'd like to schedule transportation. Village Hall and all Village of Ridgewood offices will be closed on Monday, November 11th in observance of Veterans Day. There will also be no garbage or recycling pickup on that day. Also on Monday, November 11th at 11 a.m., American Legion Post 53 will be hosting a Veterans Day service at Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. All are invited to attend to honor those who have served in the armed forces to protect our freedom. Bergen County Utilities Authority will be holding a Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day on Saturday, November 16th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Bergen County Utilities Authority, Empire Boulevard in Moonachie. Residents are asked to stay in their vehicle and allow staff to retrieve any items that need to be disposed of. And finally, upcoming village council meetings. November 6th is a work session. November 13th is a public meeting. Both start at 7:30 p.m. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Keith. Evan?
Great, I'll be brief. We've not had a lot happen, I guess, since the last meeting, or at least I haven't. First, I did want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting the debate last Wednesday. Obviously, I don't think it's appropriate to comment, for me to comment on the substance, but I do think it's wholly appropriate to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting and putting that on every year. Also want to remind everyone, regardless of who you want to vote for, please make sure you show up on November 5th. I know there are lots of options for how to vote, but make sure you find one that works for you. Library met last night, doing a lot of great work through the library. I was particularly impressed when we walked in at about 7:30 last night, and the teen room was absolutely packed with kids. They're doing homework, socializing, really everything that the library hoped to get when they did that work last year. Library looks great, and really need to thank everyone involved with that for making the library look the way it looks now. Ridgewood Arts Council met last week. We're sponsoring an artist talk November 14th at 7 p.m. Shantala Kaikini is an artist, will be speaking. She does lots of graphic arts, painting portraits from an Indian influence. If you go to the library website, excuse me, they have more information up, but the Arts Council planned that and is hosting it, and I encourage all to attend.
Great, thanks, Ev. Siobhan?
Sure. I want to give a big thank you to the Access Committee for our first ever Access Week. It was wonderful, and I want to thank Jamie Davis for an awesome sensory-friendly dinner. Remind the community the next one is at the Pancake House, which is going to be awesome as well. We also featured American Sign Language for the first time, and I want to thank everybody on the council who showed up and signed. I know that everybody now knows how to say hungry. And thank you so much to the Ridgewood Public Library for making that happen. For Pull Over Properly, where if you're neurodivergent and you could experience higher rates of stress while being pulled over, they were great, and the police were excellent with Blue Envelope. And Joanne Van Sant, the fashion show. We are looking to even get bigger next year because it was 5 days and we need to fill, we've decided we want to go full 7. So thank you to everybody, particularly everybody on this council who showed up and supported that community. And thank you to pretty much like the nicest, hardest working committee ever. I also want to say thank you to Shade Tree because in order for us to get more trees in the right-of-way, we had to think outside the box, and Adam Brown and Nancy Brennan Hill really made it happen. It wasn't as easy as this year. We had a little bit of trouble finding the saplings, but we got them, we planted them. We had literally dozens of kids involved in the planting of them. We had, again, multiple council members and our town attorney planting them, which shows serious commitment. And I want to thank particularly Miles Liu at the high school and the Green Team kids and Henry Rosh and crew who showed up as well. And then last night, Pam and I had a joint meeting between Parks and Recreation and the Green committees because there's a lot of overlap with our committees. So this is an example where things that we do in park are also done with Pam's committee. We did this last year with open space and parks, and the enhancements to the parks website came from that. So this year, it was a wonderful meeting. I want to thank Rich Brooks and David Refkin and everybody who was there. But we're going to be following up together in a targeted approach on meadows, sample meadows on public land, rain gardens, and a specific type of grass seed that requires less watering. So thank you to everybody. Stay tuned. There's several splinter groups that are going to be coming out of that, and thank you, Pam, for having my Parks Committee. It was wonderful. That's it.
Thanks, Siobhan. Pam?
Here's what I learned at Access Week. The signing, it was Sign With Me. It was a story about the very hungry caterpillar, but here's the sign that I learned. If this is a cup, that's how you say vote. Let's see. Oktoberfest was just glorious, so I wanted to thank the Y for sponsoring that downtown. And the Harvest Festival was equally glorious downtown, and that's thanks to the Guild. CBDAC met. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what we discussed, but it was an interesting meeting. And I do want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting the candidates debate because it was really substantive. And it was intellectually stimulating for everybody who was here. Let's see. Friends to Friends service during Access Week was also really moving, not just for me, but for my family. And I want to thank Reverend Dr. Joanne Van Sant for organizing that. Adapt a sapling. If you got a sapling in front of your house with the 2 sticks next to it, make sure to water them, please, especially now in the drought. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Pam. I'm going to reiterate so many of the things that you guys talked about, and I'm going to do it quickly because this is why I just love this town. Access Week, the Friends to Friends service that Pam talked about, the fashion show, the talent show. You had to see this one young man. He was phenomenal. He played like Liberace. I mean, he was just unbelievable. He wasn't good, he was amazing. The fashion show, these kids were just so great to be with, and the Friends to Friends service is always a wonderful thing. The Adopt a Sapling that I have to thank my friend Siobhan for, who foolishly made me something called a tree captain, which was just so much fun. We had such a great time, met so many great people. The League of Women Voters debate, thank you so much, League of Women Voters. It was, as Pam said, a truly substantive debate. It was civil. I think everyone walked away better informed. But the programs that we have, excuse me, Pull Over Properly, which, look, we've seen in the national news problems where someone who doesn't have all of the facilities that many people have, maybe autistic, and they get pulled over and it becomes a problem. This was teaching both kids with autism and other disabilities and police officers how to recognize and handle this situation. And police officers came from several surrounding towns. It was really a wonderful thing. The sensory-friendly dinner that my friend Jamie Davis hosts, because for those of you who don't realize, families with autistic children and other issues don't go out to dinner, as I've come to learn, because their kids can't go to a crowded, noisy, well-lit place, and which means that the parents can't go out because they have no one to leave their kids with. And Jamie Davis has organized this so that restaurants in town will often open on a night when they are closed, just for them. Kudos to Jamie, kudos to the families, and kudos to the restaurant owners who do this simply to accommodate these people. But then, here, Ridgewood is so good, we don't have one Oktoberfest, we have two. We call the second one the Guild Harvest Fest. They were completely different, wonderfully the same, and so much fun, drew giant crowds, went to both of them, can't tell which one I liked best. But I will tell you, I had a great time in Ridgewood the last couple of weeks. It's been a lot of fun. And with that, we will move on. So Keith, it's all yours.
Could I just
Oh, excuse me.
mention again about voting? Early voting does start this Saturday, October 29th, goes through Sunday, November 3rd. Hours, Monday through Saturday, are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and you can go to any location that has early voting. There's none in Ridgewood specifically, but if you work closer to another early voting location, please do so. Also, the deadline to apply for mail-in ballots, they must be received, the application must be received by the county no later than October 29th, but if you still want to vote by mail-in, you can do so. So I just want to remind everyone, and obviously, Election Day is November 5th, polls are open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Heather,
Thanks.
when did you say early voting begins?
This Saturday, and then it goes through the following Sunday.
Thank you.
All good? Keith?
Thank you, Mayor. And just before we get to the agenda, I want to thank Heather. She worked today with Carol in my office. There'll be a standalone email that goes out tomorrow, I believe, which will outline all of the announcements about voting, where the early voting sites are. It takes you through a video clip of the new machines. So I think it'll be very informative. So if you are on our email distribution list, please take note that that'll be coming out tomorrow. Under Ridgewood Water, Mayor, tonight we have consideration of a resolution to cancel water capital ordinances, funds to be canceled from the capital surplus in the amount of $623,995.61. This is authorized debt that we can take off our books because these monies have been determined not to be needed from a significant amount, which is listed on page 3, of old water capital ordinances that were previously authorized. Questions?
All good?
Okay.
Let's go.
I just want to make note, too, on the operating side of the budget, I've also asked all the department heads to take a similar initiative to what Water has done here and look at old ordinances and see what we can cancel before the end of the year. So Bob Rooney is spearheading that, and I anticipate that in November or December, you'll see some additional cancellations from authorized debt from the other departments in the village.
So I know we can't use Bridgewood Water money for anything other than Bridgewood Water, but if we do find extra money left over from previous ordinances for village expenses, do we get to reappropriate those funds, or what happens with that?
I mean, it frees up, you won't be spending those, so if
Okay.
you want to reallocate those dollars that were previously authorized for other things, there's a process to do that. We talked about that at a council meeting earlier this year. We'll have to follow that process.
Okay.
I actually have a letter upstairs from bond counsel that outlines that specifically, that I can share with the council if you decide that's the direction you want to go in.
Certainly, when we get to a point where we think we've gone through and we've cleaned it up, we'd love to know how much money there is and see how we're going to treat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right.
Evan, I definitely want to see what's left over in the originally assigned bucket related to the original bond.
Of
Like
course.
when it comes back to us. You too, right?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
was getting at. I want to see how much money we have left
Right, and
over.
obviously, we won't be, for example, the money that we're using to pursue the fuel tank replacement at the Public Works facility, you know, that sat idle for a while, again, a project that sort of lingered. We're now doing it, so once that project is closed out and we're done with the environmental, we'll know how much is left in there, and then we can look to cancel out that. So these will be projects that are already completed, but where we didn't expend all of the funds that were authorized for the project. All right? Okay. All right, under budget tonight, item C1, we have the recommendation of award furnishing and delivering the chemicals that are needed at the Water Pollution Control Facility. We received 3 bids for this. The apparent low bidder is PVS Munibulk Incorporated. Low bidder's quote is $14,000 less than last year's quote. Any questions about that?
Great.
Good.
Okay. Heading in the right direction. The next is a recommendation from Chris Rudershauser to enter into the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission Cooperative Pricing Program for award of storm system cleaning and CCTV inspection. The village has been investigating conditions of storm sewer lines in the collection system in the area of Hope Street and Spring Street. Rapid Pump provided the attached quote under the PVSC Cooperative Purchasing Program to inspect the storm sewer system. There's a contract number there, and it's a not to exceed $42,000.
Everybody good?
Okay, the next is the removal of abandoned underground fuel storage tanks at North Walnut Street. This is the parking lot at the corner of Franklin. Chris is making a recommendation of award for the hiring of a New Jersey licensed site remediation services professional. We took bids on this on October 16th. Contract has been previously awarded, and he is recommending that we use VHB Incorporated, the amount not to exceed $77,176.05. I will note this is the same LSRP that had consulted with the village council mainly before my arrival on the town garage. The LSRP handling that project is the prior owner's LSRP, but we've used this same consultant on that property, so there'll be some synergy there between what goes on at town garage and what goes on North Walnut Street with the. Good. Okay?
So,
Yeah.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I wanted to jump in because this is a frequently asked question, and we have all the documents here for those who are watching at home. This is the parcel of land that the village owns on the corner next to the town garage. And we have our own situation there on land that we've already owned. So we are taking steps to clean that up concurrent, pretty much, like not exactly in lockstep with the town garage. So this is an opportunity for the village to take that land, clean it up at the same point, and then we can have a community conversation about what we want to do with that corner after we get the results.
There's quite a number of tanks under that property
Yeah.
from when it was a gas station. Village took it over at some point in the past, became a parking lot, but we need to remediate what's underneath the ground.
I'm sure that Evan and I are both eager to see this happen. We've been looking at this since 2015. My understanding is there were 9 underground storage tanks. 2 were taken out, but the soil was not remediated. And 5 are gasoline tanks. 1 is an oil tank and 1 is a waste oil tank. And this LSRP, as I understand it, will not only manage and plan this whole process and oversee it as it's happening, but will also recommend to us a contractor who can do the removal and who can, I don't know if it's the same contractor that would do remediation, But I think that's very helpful. And they're going to, also, the LSRP will also be doing this sampling.
Right.
And what I didn't understand is whether this $77,000 that goes to the LSRP firm will include the lab fees, or should we anticipate lab fees at a later date?
I think it depends on what we open up the ground and find.
Okay. Well, we're going to be having lab feeds in any event, right?
Right. Yes.
And, let's see, did I have other questions?
The one thing I want to say is that depending on what and if they find under the ground, any remediation that needs to be done will need to be done by a certified contractor who's licensed to do that, and then it'll need to be taken to a place that's certified to take in that type of film.
Okay, so my question is, can we, once we get a plan together for the removal, can we apply for an EPA grant?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can inquire with Millennium and see if there's something available. I can also inquire with the LSRP, once they're retained, to see if there's any incentives.
Yeah, my recollection is that EPA has a yearly grant opening for brownfield or, you know, these kinds of gasoline station cleanups, but it seems to come due in the fall, and we'll probably miss that. So anyway, for 2024. Anyway, so that's my suggestion. Let's keep a grant in mind.
Understood.
Anybody else?
Okay,
Let's
the
go.
next item is renewal of a shared services agreement for TV inspection of the sanitary sewer lines. This is an agreement that we've previously had with Northwest Bergen County Utilities Authority. They recently sent us correspondence letting us know that our agreement is set to expire on December 31st. There's no increase to this. It's $500 a day, which is what it was previously. And Chris is making the recommendation that we continue to utilize their services. Okay.
And we use these services as we see fit, right?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
So can I say one, because it's a workshop, sorry. At the Fields Committee, the Board of Ed facilities manager said they just found a storm drain behind the scoreboard, and they were telling us this. Can we reach out to the Board of Ed and see if they need any help with sending a camera down that, because that ties back into spring?
What was the location again?
Behind the scoreboard. So it's
At the high school?
at the high school. It's
Okay.
on their property. It's a very good thing. It had been grown over, and they were like, you know, when everyone was looking at the flooding, the facilities cleaned it off. And I said, listen, if you guys want to talk about sending a camera down, I think this would be a good idea, because that's where the camera from Hope Street came out the other way, on like the other side by James Rose.
I'll reach out to Dr. Schwartz and ask
Okay,
him.
thank you.
And the last time we did that inspection, the robotic video in that stormwater system, I seem to recall there was a blockage around Addison Place.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure if that's been cleared.
Yeah, I know Peter Fuso in engineering has been dealing with that. I haven't gotten a report lately. I know but I have seen there's been dialogue between him and the residents over there.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, good.
Item 5 is the cancellation of property taxes for 120 Franklin Avenue, now that the village has assumed responsibility for town garage. And the second is authorization for a refund on the same property to cover back to the date that we took ownership of the property. So the refund's for $2,362.82. All right? Okay, the next item under policy is a request to extend the dining corrals in the Central Business District to November 3rd, 2024. We have an email, which I believe was provided to you folks earlier in the week, from the president of the Chamber of Commerce and the owner of Steel Wheel, asking to extend it just until Sunday. So,
just get an extra weekend, right?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And it's
So-
been so warm.
Right. So what I would recommend, and Heather and I talked about this afternoon, if the council's inclined to allow this and have it removed, I've already spoke to Mike Junta. He can schedule to remove them either Sunday night or Monday night.
Yeah.
And then what we would do is on November 13th, we would do a confirming resolution that the dates were extended, just to cover us for a liability standpoint. But if you give me the verbal tonight, we'll let everybody know that they should stay in place through the 3rd.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay? All right.
I feel the same way.
Let's go.
Okay. Under operations, next item is to approve the flood plan management plan, annual report for National Flood Insurance Community Rating System. As I said, we submitted the paperwork earlier this week. However, the plan needs to be confirmed by the governing body.
Everybody good?
Good. Next
Can
item
I-
is.
Can I just, one typo?
Just one?
No, I'll make it two. Let me add one. I suggest that the pages be numbered, and if you go to page 1, 2, 3, at the top, the second bullet refers to,
Are you counting the cover page as 3?
I'm not counting the
As
cover
one?
page.
Okay,
No.
okay.
So, the second bullet says, additionally, the Ridgewood Wildscape Association has partnered with several religious organizations and the Ridgewood Environmental Advisory Committee, also known as the Green Team. It's now known as Green Ridgewood. Green Team being a subcommittee of Green Ridgewood.
So you want Ridgewood Environmental Advisory Committee to change, or you want Green Team to change?
Green
Oh.
team.
Yeah, why not just say Green Ridgewood instead of Ridgewood Environmental Committee? And so you would also take out the parenthetical. That's my typo.
Okay. Send it to you about in the
I'm
morning.
guessing everybody's good with that?
Yes.
Okay, the next is a memorandum from our Director of Health with regard to Childhood Lead Exposure Prevention Project. This is a shared services agreement that we work with Bergen County Health Services to obtain a grant, New Jersey Department of Health. The county provides lead poisoning services to all 70 towns in Bergen County. The agreement's valid for 12 months, and this will run from 7/1/24 to 6/30/25. There's no cost to the village on this. Next is a memorandum of understanding also with the Bergen County Health Department, which receives grant money to be the lead agency in offering services to local health departments. There's no fee for these services, but it's required under the Public Health Practice Standards. This covers comprehensive cancer control plan, the New Jersey Cancer Education and Early Detection Program, the Tuberculosis Control and Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program. Again, no cost. Next item is to declare 436 East Saddle River Road as an abandoned property. Call your attention to the third paragraph of the proposed resolution, which talks about this property having been vacant for at least 6 months. The lawn has not been mowed, property has not been cared for since the spring, and it's created a health and rodent concern for the property and the adjacent neighbors. Property owner is delinquent in their payment of property taxes for over 1 year, and the efforts to contact the property owners have been futile to date. So I can let Matt speak more to this if there's questions of the council, but our intention is to hire a contractor so that we have a specific invoice relative to the cleanup, and then we would subsequently place a lien on the property.
So this is actually a whole house that's just vacant and
Yeah.
and rotting away?
Yeah.
And I saw it's an LLC. Do we have
There's
any
a-
other information about who the actual owners are?
We've made every effort through code enforcement and through the tax office to try to contact the property owners, to no avail. There's a trailer on the property, has 2 flat tires. There is, the grass is, waist high, and the neighbors in the area have been consistently contacting us, and code enforcement has been on this. The health department was out there this week. There are bait traps on the property, which indicates that, well, there's no evidence of rodents today. There
There were
were at one
historically.
point, because that's what necessitated the
I
bait
mean,
traps.
anecdotally, do the neighbors know who lived there? I'm just worried it's an old person who passed away, or there's a family that doesn't know that the property is vacant. I mean, I have no problem moving ahead, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I can tell you that John's and code enforcement is very prudent about trying to investigate, to try to find people. And we had a meeting about this last week, and it's to no avail.
And I think Evan raises a good point. Is there any reasonable prospect that the owner may be inside and has passed away.
The police department have been involved in these discussions, so I don't think
Okay.
that's...
The property has changed hands recently, and there is an LLC that is the owner of the
Ah.
property. I think it was John, our code enforcement officer, that had contacted the responsible party for the LLC through the state,
No avail.
and got contact with them, but they said they've sold the LLC since then.
Right.
So it's a chase, or it's a hide-and-seek game. But in any event, if we think that we've got other issues to deal with from the standpoint of health and safety in that area, and once we declare this property to be an abandoned property under our ordinance and it follows the state statute, we think we'll get some action on it if we go back to the last known address
Oh, I see.
of the owner, and that's the way we got to attack it.
Got it.
The problem is we can't go on the property and do any
Till
type
you-
of maintenance effort without your authorization, and I can tell you that the neighbors are getting impatient, understandably so.
So I have no issue moving ahead. It's the right thing to do, just as long as when we do take possession, physically go in the property, if there's anything that gives us an idea of who the actual owners are.
Keep in mind, we won't take possession of the property. We're just looking for your authorization to go on the property, do the necessary maintenance that's required, and then we'll place a lien on the
Clean
property.
it, just
Now,
clean it up.
if we go through a number of tax cycles and the lien is still there, you know, at some point, I guess theoretically, the village could take over that property, but, you know, there could be another lien holder. There's a lot of different scenarios that could take place there.
Yeah, and the next step's pretty much after this, and if we don't get any reaction from them, there are legal avenues of approach with Superior Court that can get us in there to take possession, and eventually, if we had to, and do something like that, take title, take care of it. But, you know, I'm not suggesting that's the way we go, because I think that's necessary. Hopefully, there's going to be a response from somebody who owns the property.
Right, so this is just to go on the property, clean it up, safeguard it, and put a lien on the
Start
property of the value of the services we render. Okay.
The declaration and this early work starts the process. It gives us the right to notify them that it's now an abandoned property. And I'll prepare the letter to go to them that has to be sent out by certified and regular mail. And it'll notify them about what we are able to do under the statute and our ordinance, which is pretty much take the property. So, I mean, that's a process that would take some time, but it's not an owner-friendly type situation when you're declared an abandoned property.
And I will tell you, throughout this process, I've learned that this is a rarity in Ridgewood, which we're blessed for.
Yeah.
But in other municipalities, this is somewhat routine, so, you know.
Hopefully, this will draw the owner out. I mean, they
Right.
do have back taxes, and hopefully, if it's a paper chase, this expedites that as well.
Right.
And the rightful owner, it's just a mistake. I
Right.
mean, maybe it's a large LLC, so, I mean, I think
Right now, the
it's-
priority is getting on the property and
Yeah.
getting it
Clean it up.
Yep.
Okay, good.
so that people can live next door.
We're good.
Let's go.
And then the last two are declaration of surplus property. One is with the Parks and Recreation Department, which has a 550-gallon storage tank and trailer that is unequipped and is prepared for auction. And the other is the declaration of surplus property of expired bulletproof vests. There is no open market opportunity for this, so with the council's approval, these will be destroyed and witnessed by the Ridgewood Police Department.
Good.
And that concludes my portion of the agenda, Mayor.
Is this
Great.
the shade tree one?
Thanks, Keith. And let's go back to public comment.
Still Lori Weber, and I'm still living in Ridgewood. And Mr. Vagianos, the look on my face wasn't me making faces at you. It was the sheer frustration of listening to you say things that were not exactly true or twisting the meaning of my comment. For starts, when I asked you for the data that you used to compare the statistics that you saw on the Ridgewood Public Schools website, I asked you where that was from. I wanted to know if it was from the same source, because I don't see any of that historic information on the website. And I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt that you had done this properly, because every place that you go for statistics they have their own software. So you have to take statistics that are from the same place to compare them. Cherry picking out what turned out to be an error on the public information officer's part not only highlighted that error in a way that puts her employment in jeopardy, does attack the person responsible for her, who is the superintendent of schools. And I think that your work experience clearly shows that you are well-educated enough to know how to vet information. And you didn't do that. You took a statistic that turned out to be wrong, and you ran with it. But you didn't compare it to something from the same source. You didn't take a minute to check it before you threw the school system under the bus. And if you had taken literally less than a minute and just Googled that statistic, you would have found over and over and over again conflicting information. And that's what I had trouble with. We did not have a lengthy conversation. We had a conversation, a texting conversation that was cut short when I asked you to identify that source. You may not believe me, but I don't like to come up here and make a fool out of myself and accuse somebody of something that they didn't do. So I gave you the opportunity to answer me, and you chose to cut our conversation short and say no, that you would not. So that's what happened there. And I do think that what you did was egregious in terms of how you characterized our schools. Some of us take that very seriously. And we have a brand-new superintendent. I think he's only been there maybe just slightly over a year now. And he's working hard and doing a great job, and what you did denigrate him. Certainly trying to tag that one little piece of information without checking it and tag it to one board member was just disingenuous. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Good evening again, Ann Loving, Ridgewood. Back to this subject of whether, of what can be placed on tables in Village Hall. I went downstairs and I saw that there is quite a diverse number of flyers and bulletins down there. For example, Veterans Diversion Resources Entities Directory, do's and don'ts about artificial intelligence, stop corruption in New Jersey from politicians and various other people and who to call, Ars Musica, Farmers Market, stop the spread of germs, various things from FEMA, parents who host the most lose the most, a magazine entitled Ho Hocus. So I understand that this is a government building, but is there a system for allowing brochures? And if the next time a person comes in with a new restaurant or business wants to put brochures over there, do they have to be approved by the clerk's office or the manager's office? Because I sure would hate to think that a front page article on the Star Ledger and in New Jersey Monitor that put our current mayor in a bad light was removed specifically for that reason, because it sure seems like it, because there is a wide array of things, all of which seem very valuable. And I think a news article about a current elected official is very valid. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Boyd A. Loving, Ridgewood. There was quite a bit of discussion tonight about the intersection of Franklin Avenue and North Walnut Street in terms of the remediation, planned remediation, and what's going to happen there. Perhaps this is not something for council discussion, and that is why it wasn't discussed tonight. But my concern is what is going to happen to the parking that is taking place there now while all this work is going on. The holiday shopping season is approaching. The corner lot, the very corner lot there, is used heavily by employees. That's employee parking in that lot. And if you go down a little bit further behind where the town garage is, those spaces are open to use by anyone, with the exception of the spaces that are reserved for, I guess, the bank there. Not sure what bank it is, but they have a number of those spaces are private spaces. There are also spaces on North Walnut Street itself right across from what used to be the Getty Station. I can't even think what that station is now, but there are a number of parking spaces in the area that will probably be inaccessible as a result of this construction taking place. And again, unfortunately, the construction will be scheduled to take place at a time when the holiday shopping season is beginning. Perhaps the manager has a plan for this, and has Mr. Rudishauser has worked out a plan for where all these people are going to park, particularly the employees. To the best of my recollection, there are always spaces in the garage. Perhaps some of the people can be moved up there. But again, I didn't hear any discussion tonight amongst the council members about what is going to be done to accommodate the people who are going to be displaced for as yet an undetermined amount of time while this is taking place. And I just hope that there is a plan in place to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyd.
Cynthia O'Keefe, Ridgewood resident. First, I wanted to thank Keith for getting back to me. I had written in about the Q&A and following up on questions that some residents, and me included, had on the contaminated soil, so I appreciate that you got back to me.
You're welcome.
And obviously, yeah, we're awaiting details of when, that can be scheduled. Obviously, it has to follow all the testing that is being done, which makes sense. We were just a little worried because, we thought maybe there was a remediation plan underway. So, as long as, things are being done in the methodical, the right way, slowly, so that the residents feel a level of comfort about, huge amounts of soil being moved. We've already lived through all the dumping, legal and illegal. So now it would be a good time to kind of really make sure that we're taking the right steps, so that there aren't any airborne contaminants, and also it makes sense to have the groundwater tested as well. But my question was more about the house that is abandoned. I do believe someone lived there and died, and I didn't have the best ability to hear all of you talking. So if I'm repeating something that you've already said, I apologize. But I would like to better understand how Ridgewood handles taxes that aren't being paid, and when, what is the process basically? So if someone doesn't pay their taxes for X amount of time, when does Ridgewood then get in touch with the owner, whether it's, somebody living or not living, to find out, hey, what's going on? That would be great to just educate me and maybe some other people that don't understand the process. Obviously the tax collector goes at some point, a phone call is warranted, right? And then, my assumption, based on what I thought I knew, was a house would then go into tax lien. I don't know if that happens first before it gets abandoned or not. So, thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. Thanks, Cynthia. Yeah. Anybody else? And let's go to our hybrid access. Denise, you're up.
Hi, Denise Lima, Ridgewood, New Jersey. I forget, is this a 3-minute or is this a 5-minute session?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Okay, great. Thank you. The town garage remediation, I think I heard this, but I just want to make sure that we might be doing the remediation at the same time as the town garage, but that we will be billed, we're using different companies and being billed separately for those costs, not to be intermingled with the town garage. I think that's what you said. Just validating that. Keith, talking about the leaves, makes sense that the vacuum machine is on the major roads. I just think maybe then on the side streets, there's smaller piles. I know we're only 2 weeks into it, but both Northern Parkway and Sterling, they plowed or tried to plow the entire length. So, the leaves just get dragged from the whole street, in the middle of the street, the whole length of the street. And by the time the guy piles it, there's really no leaves left because they're in the street, strewn all across. So I wish I took a picture, but there's definitely got to be a better way. And I want to go back to the tracking with the guild. And I just want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. We have a monthly CBD DAC meeting which Pam chairs and attends. We have somebody from the Guild that is on those calls. It's either Trish Manzo or now Nina Jurdy through the last year, because I think Tony said this has been going on for a year. There's clearly Guild topics. So are we saying for the entire year, nobody from the Guild, none of the business owners knew anything that Tony was doing with tracking, and he was working roguely, quietly never told anybody at any of those meetings or any of the other get-togethers that we've had and events with the Guild, and Siobhan, you've been on certain things with Tony as well, until all of a sudden just last month when he decided to come and tell us, hey, this is what happened. Like, I really, I'm not asking about monitoring, but we have to, somebody had to have known. I failed to see with all of the great interactions with the CBD, Paul, you know, you're there, right? Everybody's there. Nobody knew about it, and Tony worked on his own. He didn't get the board of directors of the Guild to review it. I mean, nothing. So I'm just kind of asking, again, understanding really how this came about, and if it didn't come in those meetings, then there's something broken, and then the process needs to be fixed within the CDAC meetings. And again, if we had known about it, I think residents should have been known about it. We should have been informed. I don't know about opt-in, opt-out, but as a courtesy, ethically, I think we should have been notified. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Susan, you're up.
Hello, Susan Ruhan. I live in Ridgewood. I want to start by thanking everyone for Access Ridgewood. My son and I attended the pullover properly. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my son and I attended the pullover properly, and it was very encouraging to see officers from other towns there to observe and also to take it to them. It's also very encouraging to have students there, some for the first time, just getting their feet wet on how to, what to expect when being pulled over. I also, I know I'm going to be a broken record right now, but I would like to follow up with the Army Corps of Engineers. I know Keith had mentioned last time that he was meeting with various people, and I was just hoping to know what's happening now with that. As for the abandoned property, I think it was a little stunning to hear about the property on East Saddle River Road. I think, again, just to get some more clarity what's happening to that property, and if there is a rodent problem. I mean, unfortunately, we live right beside the river, close to that property. So we would like to know too, just for ourselves, so we can be on the lookout for that. And I think that should be just something that should be shared with the residents that are in a close proximity to that property. And then finally, this is something I'm just going to piggyback off Denise. Yes, I do not like the track AI. I'm not going to even talk about that. But it's the leaves. I think that if this is something that it's just an FYI, my daughter went to Hawes, and Stevens is one big long road. And I don't know why they decide to do it, but like when they do leaf collections, they also do it when parents are dropping off their kids or picking up their kids. And parents then have to weave in and out of those big piles, not knowing the oncoming traffic. So if just an FYI, if they can do it without, during pickup and drop off, that'll be great, especially down Stevens. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Jacqueline, you're up.
Jacqueline Ridgewood.
Your last name, Jacqueline?
Hone.
Thank you.
At the recent debate, our mayor spoke passionately and was appalled by bullying. And that made me very uncomfortable, because I was a victim of the mayor hiding and censoring comments. And now we know through actual documents showing that this is taking place, which is a form of bullying taxpayers and citizens, hiding comments, censoring. And then there was an entire community that begged and pleaded with the council, sending a petition to please test the Shedler property. And we were ignored completely, which is also a form of bullying. And come to find out, only because the community insisted and had to seek help outside of the village of Ridgewood, did we come to find out that 42 million pounds of soil were brought into the Shedler Park community, and now it sits there for years, for months, an entire community exposed to contamination with dangerous health and environmental impacts. I understand that now, and only now, that the DEP has stepped in and forced the hand, that the village council and the village of Ridgewood decided that something had to be done. But the one thing that I've never seen or heard of or from is an actual apology from the mayor for his bullying, for his hiding and censoring comments, for dismissing the hundreds of petitions that came in that were signed asking for studies, and for the countless emails that went in from concerned residents asking to please look into what's happening at Shedler, or the fact that these residents had to go outside of their community to get help, to just get the council to do what is their fiduciary obligation. So I really consider that statement about, during the debate about bullying, almost insulting, and it was really upsetting. And if at the very least, an apology is owed from the village of Ridgewood, especially our mayor, to the residents of Shedler for ignoring them, and from the mayor specifically for hiding and censoring our comments pertaining to the same Shedler property. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Seeing no one else, I'm going to close public comment. Does anyone have any responses for anything?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to the last comment. I have the utmost respect for Jacqueline and the folks that are advocating for a different course of action than we've elected to take at Shedler. But I think phrasing the environmental issues as a grave danger and a health threat is completely contrary to everything we've been told in terms of how serious the nature of the situation is. We've moved quickly to stop any building. We've moved quickly to do remediation and do testing. And we've never been told that there is some health danger to the residents or the people surrounding the property. And stating that publicly in order to, I think, gin up political support for a different view than we have taken, it's not appropriate, and it's not fair to the residents who live around that neighborhood. Moreover, saying that we've ignored and bullied the folks who advocate, again, for a different position that we've taken at Shedler. Other than the budget, there is no issue that I think we've spent more time on than Shedler. We have heard from both sides. We have taken as much testimony as you can possibly take on any one topic. We just disagree. Having a good faith disagreement with somebody is not bullying. That's doing our job. Democracy is messy. We're not always going to agree, but making accusations of bullying and ignoring people only serves to make it so that when somebody does actually bully somebody, it gets dismissed. It's the boy that cried wolf, and I really still have and have the most respect for the folks on the other side of this issue, but I think using accusations like that is reckless and simply not fair or appropriate.
Anyone else?
Yes, I'll apologize. I'm sorry you feel that you've been bullied or that your comments have been censored, but I've sat here in every council meeting with the mayor, and I did not perceive any bullying or censoring. On the contrary, the mayor and the council have listened to objections. We've taken action based on your objections. We have not ignored you, And I am offended myself that you would accuse my colleague of doing these things which I simply have not perceived as real. And as for the Placer AI project that the Guild has and presented to the public here, yes, it came before the Central Business District Advisory Committee. They reported on it, and the CBDAC does not control what the Guild does. I don't see any ethical violation. I did not perceive it then. I do not perceive an ethical violation today. That's all I have to say.
I too want to say something in terms of an apology. I'm sorry that the conversation about Shedler seems so antagonistic and stuck, and a large part of when Evan and I were running was to disclose what's actually happening with the property. And when I was an active citizen and Paul and Pam were sitting up here, 2 plans were submitted to SHPO in complete and total darkness. Complete and total. Outside the neighbors, outside of Plain Light, outside of open space that purchased the property. And when Evan and I came on here, we knew it was going to be a rough project because there's a difference as to what should be done with the land. But we've disclosed everything, and we've paid for it. The DEP, to me, is not, an oversight big brother. They're our partners. We now have to make a joint decision with the DEP and SHPO. I want to work with them. Everything that they write me, or this council, or our manager, or our lawyer, we work with them. And I feel so terrible that despite public clamoring, and let's be clear, I was part of the public clamoring, nobody knew the soil was dirty. Nobody even knew it came from 6 sites. We all share that frustration. And I feel sorry for Ridgewood that we're so stuck in this past conversation. Because right now, everybody up here, and I didn't poll them, wants to clean that soil. We want to do it responsibly, we want to remediate it, and we've paid for it. And we're going to do that, and we're going to do it together. We're also going to partner with the DEP and SHPO. So some of this just seems like an unnecessary argument about tactics, and the harsh reality is we're all on the same page. Outside of the size of the field and the turf, there's really very little to discuss for us. That's it. Those are the 2 points, whether you want the field to be full-sided and varsity or you want it to be grass and or turf. Everything else, everybody agrees, and we've moved the funding to do it. We're going to get the information from Matrix, and we're going to make a collective decision in conjunctions with the neighbors and the community, and we're going to remediate that land. And unlike the past, we're going to do it out here in front of everybody. So I feel sorry for Ridgewood because this conversation is not progressing, and that's where I feel. And I also want to say, I fully support the Guild and the Chamber in any step they take to maintain vibrancy. They are partners as well. And I'm sorry that people have feelings about what they did with Placer AI. I suggest you go to them. But to Tony and Joan and Pam CBDAC, you're talking about neighbors that spend countless hours, tons of money to make our town better. And if you felt it was a misstep with the Guild, you should go there. But to discredit Pam's whole committee that's done nothing but work so hard to make our downtown better, that's not really fair. I didn't know about Placer AI with the Guild until they came here. This is how we disclosed it. Again, people may not like it, but at least you're knowing about it. Before we got here, things weren't always put out in front.
I'm going to jump in. Excuse me. Slight sore throat. I really thought that Evan said this best. We've spent so much time on Shedler. We spent more time on that, I think, than the budget. We've done, as Siobhan said, everything out in the open. Before we got here, it wasn't done like that. It just wasn't. The contaminated soil was before any of these 4 council people here, and the 5th actually, were sitting on the council. We're all on the same page about cleaning the property. Completely on the same page. And as Siobhan points out, the only thing we disagree on is the type of field that's going to go there. And that's what it is. It's a disagreement. To attempt to characterize the disagreement about the size of a field as bullying is a stretch that's pretty hard to follow. We don't bully from here. There are hundreds of hours of video. I urge everyone to go look at all of them and tell me that there's been any bullying here. We have a disagreement. That's all we have. And we respect, as Evan said, those people who disagree with us, because that's the way democracy works. And so with that, I'm going to close this. Oh, do you have any responses?
Just one response, I'll be quick, to Cynthia's questions about the East Saddle River Road property. It may be that somebody passed away who lived there, but the tax assessor's office has the ownership of all properties within the village, and that's what we're using to try and track down the owner of the property. The other side of it is that if somebody doesn't pay their taxes, like a lot of things in law, it's a process, and it's a tax sale process. And it'll take me about 20 minutes to talk to you. I'm not going to do it tonight, but if you want to call and discuss it, it's one of the more boring things you can get involved in, but I can explain it to you. So if you'd like to do that.
Mayor, just a few things. First, with regard to Ms. Hone, I can't speak to what occurred here before I arrived, but I can tell you that I have taken every meeting, every phone call, every email, every text with every resident of the Shedler property since I arrived here on July 10th of 2023. And so much so that on July 27th of that month, at the request of the residents, I went out there and we met at the end of Kingsbridge Lane, and there were probably 30 or 35 residents out there in the street with us, and we talked about the bridge, and we talked about the paving on West Saddle River Road. Both of those are done or in progress. And we went over to Shedler, and we walked the property, and every single email, and I can tell you, if you add it up in my email box, all the emails I've gotten since I've been here, I bet you the top issue, just like the top issue for the council discussing it, has been something to do with Shedler. And when we were notified by the DEP that there were issues with the soil that they wanted us to further investigate, we immediately took action. We immediately went out and sent out proposals to find an environmental company that was reputable, that the village council and that the residents around the Shedler neighborhood could have confidence in the work that they would do. And I have to tell you, we've had nothing but a positive experience, professional experience, with the folks from Matrix. And quite frankly, in other municipalities, I would be very reluctant about allowing residents to talk directly to employees of one of our professional service providers. But in this case, because there, quite frankly, is a lack of trust, and whether that exists because soil was brought there in 2019 or whether it's because you don't trust the people that sit up here today, I can't answer that. But there's a lack of trust that's been developed over time. And I think it's important that people can get answers directly from professionals in the field, like Chris Pitarisi, who's our LSRP on this project. And you have had access to them. So to say that anyone's been ignored, again, I can't tell you what happened before I got here. But I can tell you that I have not, as the village manager in this town, ignored anybody on any issue, and certainly not when it comes to Shedler. With that being said, to Susan, the Army Corps of Engineers, I had a Zoom meeting with them 2 weeks, 10 days ago. We are waiting for the next round of congressional funding to be approved in order to determine which programming spot we're going to enter into. So I'm hopeful by the end of the year, once Congress gets back in session after the election, we'll have some better perspective on that. Denise, with all due respect, and I think we've developed a good working relationship, and I try to be responsive to you, but I do take exception with how you misrepresented what I said after the first public session. I said none of those things about the Guild. I didn't say they were working covertly or under the cover of darkness or hiding anything. I said that the first time we learned about Placer AI conducting any type of study for the Guild was when Tony came here, not last month, but when Tony came back here in July, and he reported it out to the council, what was going on with that technology that the Guild was utilizing. So I do take exception to you putting words in my mouth, and I say that with respect. Also, with regard to the town garage, the comments from Denise, the two projects are completely separate. The town garage, all of the environmental, the raising of the building, all will be conducted under, by the prior owner and their professional staff. The Walnut Street, North Walnut Street and Franklin parking lot, that is exclusively a village project. The only thing that I was trying to illustrate is that the consulting LSRP who worked the council and worked with Matt and our special legal counsel on the condemnation proceedings with the town garage is the same LSRP who's going to work on North Walnut. It's just the same professionals working on behalf of the village in both situations. With regard to the tax sale, Cynthia, I like Matt, could bore you to death, but if you Google New Jersey tax sale, there's a bulleted answer under Google. It'll tell you exactly what the process is. To Mr. Loving, we do, in fact, have a plan. Heather and I sat in a meeting earlier this week with Bob Bruni. Bob is in the process of identifying all the people who currently have permits for the North Walnut lot. Likely, although not confirmed, that they will be relocated to parking spaces in the garage. They will have ample notice before this project starts, and we will try to handicap how long it will be in duration. Although, again, as Pam said earlier, the environmental on this is going to be a little bit more complex. So we don't know how long those people will be displaced, but we will ensure that they have ample notice and that they are assigned a parking space, especially in light of the fact that that's our employees. To Ms. Loving, again, I will stand by the fact that that table out there is for information that supports this meeting. I would have removed anything that was placed there, especially in light of, understanding it's political season. I wouldn't have cared which candidate it was for or against, whether it even had to do with a candidate. I know it was a newspaper article. But I have to tell you, with all due respect, and you've been up at that podium many a time since I've arrived here. I honestly believe that if something was placed in the back of that room on that table that you opposed, that you would be at that podium criticizing us for not having it removed and allowing it to be there. I think that would be the position you would take depending on what material had been placed on that table. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Can I say something that I forgot to say?
Sure.
Okay. When I see something on the official website of a government entity like the school district, I think it is fair to accept as official what's on that website. I don't see anything nefarious in quoting something from the school district website, and to require a person, based on his education, to go behind that figure, I think is really asking too much of people.
And with all due respect, we've had people come to the podium and question information on the village website and call it into question because there is a reliance from the public that the information that's published on the village website is accurate and complete.
I just wanted to say one thing. If we need to have a policy, we can get one, but none of the flyers listed in detail are in this room. They're down in the atrium. So I know that people are because people are watching at home and sometimes it's different. The question is that they were next to government-issued binders. That, it appears that the government may have placed them. So the detail, I know that we give out a lot of information in the atrium, but not in this room.
And listen, we will certainly look at a policy, both for downstairs and up here. I can tell you that I have other places that I've worked, it required the signature of the administrator for any documentation to be placed on any of the tables. Had to be for a nonprofit, a community organization, something of the like. Heather and I can certainly sit down and talk to Matt and have a conversation about having some sort of policy in place for the new year.
Anybody else? Let's call it a night. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.